Hey everyone, welcome back to season 2 of Behind the Lens. Thank you so much for coming and checking out. Our guest today is Isaiah King, content creator with the New England Patriots. Super excited to just dive in and get to know him a little bit better. But Isaiah, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. I'm sure you have a busy schedule working with the Patriots, but I appreciate you coming on and sharing your knowledge for people to learn from you, man.
Yeah, no worries. I appreciate you even asking me.
Yeah, no doubt. And Isaiah, I think we actually connected via Instagram, right? If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that's how. Yeah, I think one of us followed each other first at some point. I'm sure. So I'm glad our paths crossed. But wanted to dive right into it and get to know you a little bit better and just how you really got started in this field as a creative. I feel like no one creative has a linear path necessarily. So would love to just start from the beginning and see, if from your upbringing, like were you always in the arts, or was it something kind of that just developed as you got older?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of weird how I started doing this. I mean, initially when I went to college, I was an econ major for 3 of the 4 years, and I thought I was gonna do like business. And I was like, maybe I could do sports business. I knew I wanted to be around sports, but my thought wasn't to be editing or shooting or anything. I kind of started doing video editing in 6th grade, 7th grade. I had like action figures, like WWE action figures, and I used to like make them fight each other. And one day I would watch the shows, and they'd have like these cool trailer packages that they show before matches, and I was like, "Oh, that's like the coolest thing I've ever seen. How the hell do I do that?" And so I went on the computer and I like just tried to figure it out. I started also just doing little animations with my action figures. My mom's camera could hold like 10 photos at once, so I'd have to like unplug it, run to the computer, plug it in, and then like repeat. And it was super annoying, but I stuck with the editing part most of high school, just making like little wrestling videos and little competitions and whatnot on forums. And then I got to college. I was like, well, I mean, I need some classes that I could relax in, and I could, I don't want to say easy A, but I felt like it would be easier for me to do something I liked. So I was like, I'll just make film and video production my minor because I already know how to do it. So it should be easy. And I'm not saying it was easy, but I did get really good grades in comparison to all my other stuff. And then one day I was like, this is kind of cool. Like, so I changed my major to communications because I knew econ. Econ was not it. Calculus, all that, not me. So when I got ready to graduate, I just applied for this Warriors internship with their studio because all the internships I've done were like business or like something unrelated to what I enjoyed. And I always wanted to do an internship where I actually enjoyed it. And I remember I told my grandma when I got back from my first day, I was like, yeah, this is the best job I've ever had. And so I just stuck with it there with their internship, and they made me a production assistant and so on and so forth. And now I'm with the Patriots.
Yeah, I love that little Spark Notes like edited version of just like all the work that you've gone through. I'm sure there was a lot of long nights and just like a lot of questioning as to whether you were doing the right thing. But I actually want to go back to the econ major part because I majored in economics as well when I was in college, and I'm on the same page as you. Like I hated it, but I was like the first person in my family to go to college and didn't know what I wanted to do. My mom was like, "You should be a business major," and I was like, "That like I'm just gonna do econ instead." But yeah, like all my professors were like super old. They had tenure, not interesting at all. Like I just did not care about anything. But regardless, but yeah, I wanted to get into your mind a little bit about like where you went to school and just what sort of initially drew you into wanting to major into econ.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of similar to you. I'm not the first person in my family, but my parents didn't go to college. And so for me growing up, I was just thinking, all right, what's something that I can do to afford the lifestyle I want to live? I don't really care what it is that I'm going to be doing. I was like, business works, and maybe I can do business within sports. And then there's the tie into what I love. So, because I always loved sports, and that was like my goal going into college. And I was running track, and so the school reached out. I went to UC San Diego, and they reached out and offered me my senior year. And so I was like, all right, cool. Well, now I know where I'm going because I mean, I'm not turning down that offer. And they didn't actually have business. So naturally, I was like, okay, what's close to business? I guess econ, like, it's fine. And it took me a while to even get to the major classes. So the first 2 years, I was just kind of doing the videography, editing stuff, and I was taking all my prereqs and um, all those types of classes. So I didn't even know what I really signed up for. I had taken like Econ 1 and it was okay. So I was like, yes, I guess it's a yes, like it's fine. And then once I finished all the calculus prereqs and I got into that first econ class and it was just calculus, I was like, yeah, this is not, no. I literally did 1/4 of my like core major classes and I was out. I was done.
That process of changing your major like mid college, because I know like a lot of my friends, like when they were in school, like they were really nervous about changing their majors or like weren't sure, and they were just like, I don't know. So what was that process like? Was that like kind of a defining moment for you, do you feel like, or was it kind of just like not even a question? You're just like, yeah, I'm not doing econ, like let me just go do this.
It was definitely like this isn't a question. I knew I was doing it. The timing was probably not the like I did it in the middle of my junior year, so definitely a lot later than most people. But I ended up being able to finish in 4.5 years. So like wanting to change it to something that wasn't like I wanted to switch it to something I enjoyed doing, and I was like, I don't mind writing. Communication offers all like these visual and this media classes and more interesting stuff than the econ class were giving me. I wasn't doing well in the econ classes, so switching it wasn't really an issue for me. But I definitely kind of got bit on the back end where my last year I was doing quarter system and I was still taking 5, 6 classes just to make sure that I got through them all, um, and set myself up so that I can I actually studied abroad my last semester. And so I wanted to be able to finish my school at like these weird rules where you have to graduate and do your last semester on campus. And so I had to like fill out all these forms and I was taking, 5, 6 classes, like as many units as you could get. And you had to get like it approved and everything just so I could make sure that I only had one elective left when I finished so that I could take it abroad and finesse it that way. So did that, graduated my communications major, and the Warriors were like, actually, it's a cool story. The Warriors knew during that summer, they knew I was going on my abroad trip right after that because it was only an 8-week program, and I still needed that technically that last class. So they were like, "Oh yeah, have fun on your trip, have fun on your trip." And the last day of the internship, they're like, "Yo, if you want to stay, like, you can stay, and just when you get back, just text us, and you're good." And like I was like, whoa, okay, bet. And so it all ended up working out fine for me. But I definitely didn't have the plan. Like I just kind of I knew I needed to switch my major, so it ended up working out.
I feel you, and I guess I mean the fact that the Warriors like were like, yeah, we'll wait for you. I think that's a testament. Clearly, like they saw value in you, and you were more a valuable asset at the end of the day. So, walk me through a little bit of about that internship process for anyone that's watching this and wants to be a sports videographer for their favorite basketball team or favorite football team. I know there's a couple sites that exist where you can find some opportunities like this, but walk us through a little bit your process, especially since you were going to school in San Diego and the Warriors are obviously up in the Bay. So just how that kind of played out.
Yeah, so I was looking for sports internships, and I knew I wanted to kind of go home. So I'm originally from the Bay Area. I'm from Oakland, and so in my mind, I knew, okay, let's check with the A's, let's check with the Raiders, let's check with the Warriors, let's check with the Giants and the 49ers. Let's see what exists. And I found out the Warriors had an internship program. I initially wanted to do the baseball ones, but those started in March through September, like for the season, and so that I knew that would never work. But the Warriors had a summer internship, which looked perfect, but I actually didn't get in the first time I applied. So I applied one year and I didn't get in. And so I was like, all right, that sucks. But I just reapplied the next year and I got it. It was, 8 weeks. It was awesome. I'm pretty sure I found it directly through the Warriors website because I knew it. I knew specifically what team I wanted to go to. So if people are interested in like finding internships, that is one route. Just go to the team, scroll down to jobs, and look. A lot of them do have, you know, those internships. But it was definitely cool working for like your hometown team. I'm actually a Celtics fan, which most people don't know, but there was still a lot of love there because
Oh, that's a
I
little
grew up in
controversial.
yeah, but like it was fine because I grew up in Oakland. I always support the Warriors. There's just one team that if they play that team, then I'm not rooting for them. But any otherwise, I definitely root for the Warriors. But yeah, so like just working for hometown team over the summer was the coolest job ever. I mean, because internships, right? They want to show you like all the best parts. And so I felt like I got that. I got the boring logging aspect. They let me edit a video that they played during preseason. They sent me to a bunch of camp shoots. They let me see what it was. I was there when they signed DeMarcus Cousins, so like I got to go to the press conference, and that was super cool. Um, they really did as much as they could to really show how cool the industry was, and so every single day I left leaving like, wow, I still really love this. I still really love this, and that's what made me want to stay in this realm. And then when they told me on like my exit interview on the last day that I could stay, that's when I knew. I was like, bet this is like my space. This is where I'm going to be at.
When you were applying for the internship, was there like what kind of work did you send them? Like, was there a specific criteria that they needed to see, or was it you were just like, this is what I've done, here it is, part of my application as a whole?
So they didn't even ask me for any of my like sample work. I don't know what went behind them not needing to ask. I didn't ask any questions, obviously. I think it was just, I don't know. I think it was just the interview part. I mean, we had this weird, I don't know if you've seen the interviews now where they'll do pre-recorded questions. So they pre-record all the questions, and then you press it. It gives you 10 seconds to read it, to think about your answer, and then you go. And so that was the first one. I definitely felt a little weird about that, but they gave me a call back, and we just had like a really good conversation. We were kind of like, vibing on the conversation. It went well. I definitely dropped in the name of programs and stuff that I've done and that I know how to do for sure. But they never asked me for like any specific work. So, people were looking to apply for internships and they're nervous about a lot of places. I think for internships specifically, it's just kind of like, they want to teach you. And so if you come in already knowing how to do everything, I actually think that's not the best bet for like a internship, like traditionally speaking.
Yeah, of course, and that makes complete sense. So yeah, for anyone watching this, like, don't be afraid to apply because you really never know like what can come of it. Yeah, so I actually want to go back a couple of steps. So I know you mentioned when you were younger, you were kind of just like taking photos with your mom's camera and like using your action figures. So I want to get like just dive deeper into like the how you learned the technical aspect of camera work and editing specifically. Like, would you say that you kind of YouTube University that, or it was just a lot of just trial and error and seeing what's working for you, or bounce ideas off of friends? Walk us through that.
Yeah, so to start, it was definitely it wasn't even YouTube University then, because I mean, this was like 2009-ish. YouTube was pretty new. There weren't creators like there are now, like you and like a lot of other people who were doing tutorials and sitting down. So it was really just me figuring out the program I wanted and then just trying to figure stuff out. The community I was a part of, we were like doing competitions. And so people were always posting their work, giving feedback. You kind of just read the feedback, internalize it, make adjustments. And I was never really regarded as like one of the better editors on those sites. I was pretty like mid-level, but it was really just going back to the program, teaching myself. And I was using a program called Sony Vegas, which is a little bit easier to use. The switch over to the Adobe stuff was tough at first, but I actually switched around the same time I started taking the classes for college. So luckily I was able to get a little bit of that technical side of editing, feeling out momentum and, okay, it should be cut there. And, really learning about real editing and filmmaking and not like the flashy, music video type stuff that I had been doing. And so that was where like at least the technical side of editing came from, was the college classes. It was nice that I did have that background of already knowing how to edit. And so I think that helped me do well in those classes. And then on the videography side, I was kind of a just point and take the picture for a long time, or point and record it. I knew like framing a little bit. I knew what kind of looks cool. I knew about like the rule of thirds and, lighting interviews and that type of stuff. But I really had no idea about like shutter speed or aperture or camera tech or any of that stuff until I worked for the Warriors. And I had already worked for the Warriors for a full year. And I went to our videographer. His name's Tom. He's amazing. He's one of the best videographers I've ever seen, especially in the sports world. And I told him, I was like, hey, I want to get better at shooting. There's no reason for me to be a good editor and not know how to shoot at all. And any question I had, Tom got me. And then from then, that was, 2019. So there was YouTube University to help back it up. When I got my first mirrorless camera and I wasn't shooting on, my phone. So I actually could watch a tutorial, then go do it with my camera and then go show someone at work and they could like, oh yeah, you should do this next time. You should do that next time. And so that's how it kind of went. So it was really just like a process of it building on itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And what would you say, where do you feel like you draw inspiration from for either your editing or shooting, or obviously a lot of what we have to do is for clients and you have to, channel a specific look. But I don't think that necessarily means that you can't incorporate like your own style and whatever you feel looks good. So how do you go about that process as a whole?
I usually draw my inspiration from other creators. I have like a huge saved video log on my Instagram. Like anytime, oh, that was awesome. Oh, that was awesome. And so, like you said, you can always put your own style to it. And I like to go through the videos, see what I'm feeling. If there was, I don't know, say I want to edit a video with some like really cool text effect on it. I know there's a million different ways that you can do it. And I go through, all the videos that I've seen, like, oh, I saw that they did it like this, and I saw this other one, they did it like this. Well, what if I did it like this? Or what if I changed it up? So really, I draw a lot of inspiration from other people in the sports community, as well as like music videos. The ASAP Mob, all their music videos are freaking incredible. Um, like just the sound design and the everything. They adding the photos to it, adding the video, putting it all together. They do a really good job on all of like ASAP Rocky and ASAP Ferg's videos. Brent Fayez has a lot of dope videos, so I like watching a lot of his. And honestly, I also watch a lot of travel videography because they're really good at, I guess, taking me out of the sports mindset and putting me in just the ability to capture something. Because anybody can go to like a city and take out their camera, but a really good travel videographer will be able to make you like capture the feeling of the city or the place that they're going. And I think that's where I started learning more about adding in those different sound elements. And they always do some like crazy transitions, getting into the drone flying. That inspired me to buy a drone and just learn how to use that. So I definitely have like a few different places where I, pull them all from.
Yeah, I got you. And I think that really allows us, or you specifically, to be a dynamic creator. You know what I mean? I think at the end of the day, no one is really original. Everyone's pulling from somewhere. You know what I mean? But just like how deep can you really dive to get that inspiration from and kind of channel those, that source of things that you can try to implement into your own edits. So I think that's something I really enjoy about your work. Just how I like you said, like I really feel like I was there. Like we'll get into a little bit later, but all the examples that you sent over really make me feel like I was actually there, and that's something that I can definitely appreciate. And kudos to you. It's just a testament of how hardworking like you really are. I want to dive into like your family dynamic just slightly. And I don't know how it was for you. I don't know how it was for you, but that's why I want to ask. But for me, I was like raised by a single parent, like a single Latina mother. And when I told her that after majoring in econ, I wanted to pursue like a career in like the arts and just videography and stuff, she was like, "That's not a real job. Like that's not even a thing." You know what I mean? And I think even like until last year is really when she really started to see like, okay, this is actually a thing. You know what I mean? And it's I've already been doing this professionally for like almost 4 years. So yeah, just tell us a little bit about how it was with like your family, and especially like when you decided to switch over to communications, and just like ultimately how it all progressed.
Similar to you, I raised by a single parent. And I think I have a unique experience because my mom was really into art and she was always pushing me to go in art. Now, she meant more of the physical sense, so painting, drawing, sculpting. She would love anytime I would draw anything, or I took like a ceramics class in high school, she would, oh my gosh, it's the greatest thing ever. I've never seen any, trying to like boost me up. So she was definitely always on board with the artistic side of myself. I would say the same. I also lived with my grandma, and I'd say the same for her. I mean, she just wanted me to do something that I enjoyed. I definitely did get some interesting questions, coming up about, when you're first starting out, you're not really getting paid. And so that can be like a big worry for people, especially when, you're not from a family that has the ability to just let you do whatever you need to do and support you that way. So there's definitely like the little bit of fear, a little bit of like, hey, Isaiah, like, when are you going to get a real job? Or like, when are you going to go full time? Or because being a production assistant, I was only part time. Um, Even though it was 30 hours, it was still, and oftentimes more hours than that, but it was still a part time job. So, when are you going to have something with benefits? When are you going to, this, that, and the other did come up a few times, but I say for the most part, they were just really supportive of me finding something that they knew I'd been doing for since I was a kid and that I really enjoyed. And so that was actually really nice. And it's the only reason I'm here with the Patriots now is the support of my family.
Amazing, yeah, no, and I think if even if it's luckily like you had your family to lean back on and did support you, and like same with me, like my mom, even though she wanted me to get like a job, she was like, I'll still support you no matter what. And I think a big part of that is the financial reasoning behind it. You know what I mean? Like you said, you aren't getting paid at the beginning because you need to build a portfolio, and people want to, sometimes you sacrifice the money for the opportunity just because of that relationship that it might build, which I think is super key. So, you really have to weigh your options when it comes to it. But yeah, I want to like once you got that Warriors opportunity and it became a job, like what was that like day to day like? How often were you like interacting or with players or at games, or was it mainly just like you were editing or kind of just running around? Like, so what did a day to day look like with you at the Warriors?
For the internship part, it was also off season. So there was a lot going on. They were kind of giving us a taste of everything. When I got back from my trip abroad, that's when, we were in season. That's when we kind of just like, I kind of hit the ground running because everyone else had been there already for 3 months. And the Warriors have like a full fledged production assistant program, which is really nice. They bring in people from a whole bunch of diverse backgrounds. I mean, someone could be 27, 28 years old, just trying to get their break. Someone could be 21, just got out of college, varying levels of skill. So they have a really nice program there specifically for production assistants. But I mean, we were doing everything. I was editing videos that were playing at halftime or pregame for the Warriors. I was editing stuff that was going to social media. We were shooting press conferences. We were shooting games. They made sure they left two cameras every game so that we could, the lower cameras, but so that we could go out there and get the shooting experience. So they let us go shoot. We'd be doing in the trenches work, doing cabling and wrapping cable for the main videographers who were working for like the networks and just following them around. So I think that was definitely like the most surreal moment is because at first I was up in the control room just kind of pressing record on all of our ads so that we could show our sponsors. And then the next game they're like, okay, you're gonna wrap cable for one of the floor cameras. And so every time out, you run out onto the court, pick up the cable, and you walk with him. And that includes pregame where they're doing the national anthem. And so, the guys standing there in front of whoever's singing and filming them, and the spotlight is like, 4 feet in front of me. And I'm just holding the cable, dressed in all black, trying not to like be all giddy and, because I'm standing in the middle of the court on an NBA game with, sold out seats. The Warriors are there and whoever else they played. I don't even know who they played. But that first moment, just like standing there, and it felt like everyone was staring at me. Obviously, they weren't, but there was definitely like goosebumps. It was definitely like a super surreal moment, but it was cool. So, that's all like the day to day stuff. We're just editing, videoing, we're doing everything.
And that's insane. I mean, I can even just you describing that. Like, I know what national anthem moments are like especially at basketball. It's just like it's like pins and needles. It's just like a goosebumps surreal experience, and just it does feel like at any moment, like anything. Like, yeah, I get where you're coming from. So that's amazing. Do you feel like that was sort of like the first time, or was it maybe a moment of validation for you where it's like, yeah, like I'm here, like I deserve to be here, like this is what I'm gonna do with my life?
I don't know that I had, that this is what I'm going to do with my life moment, but it was definitely a moment where I was like, wow, so many people like don't get to be in this position and don't get to do what I'm doing right now. Like this is just like a real moment of appreciation for where I'm at. And yeah, I mean, it's just a crazy experience to have that. And I don't think I ever got over that. Now, with coming to the Patriots, a little different because there wasn't that fan aspect and that being on the field aspect for it. So I haven't gotten that yet here. I'm sure I will next season. But like even the last game I shot, after working for the Warriors, 2 years right before the pandemic hit, even when the national anthem goes on, even if I'm more calm or I know like, okay, I'm trying to get a shot, I still get those like goosebumps because it's just such a surreal moment. And I don't think that's something I'll ever really like get over.
And speaking on the Patriots, I want to see like how do you get from shooting with the Warriors or being an assistant there? How does that transition over to a full-time content creator job with the New England Patriots in the middle of a pandemic? Be it all.
Yeah. I think the pandemic part was definitely like the funniest. A lot of people were like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I don't know," but it was honestly kind of random. So this summer I decided, or once the pandemic started, I was like, okay, let me just start following more creatives just to see what other people are doing. Because for a long time, I just kind of lived with just what me and the Warriors are doing. And so I decided to start following a lot of people. And I think it was around July, maybe. I happened to follow a couple of the guys who work here at the Patriots. And then all of a sudden, one of those guys was like, I'm excited to announce I'm working for, and he moved on to another opportunity. And I was like, wait, well, I mean, that means his opportunity is open. So I literally, that moment, I went onto the Patriots website, I scrolled down, I saw the job, I was like, oh, shit, like, yes. And so I just applied, and I kind of got a good feeling about it throughout the interview process. And I would say I was interviewing from about the end of August was probably the first interview until I got offered the job in October. Like the first week of October, they offered me the job. So it was definitely interesting. It was definitely like kind of nerve wracking. Like I didn't know, like, okay, do I move across the country where I know no one, and I leave my friends and my family and my girlfriend and everything that I've ever known in California to go to a state where I was born in, but I lived here until I was one. So come to a place that I don't know with people I don't know to take an opportunity at a job, and that's where, like what you said earlier, comes back into it, where you make sacrifices for that opportunity because you know where the opportunity can put you in the future. And so yeah, I just packed up my car, and me and my girlfriend came with me, and we drove across the country with all my stuff and wore a mask the whole time.
Like you mentioned, you just kind of left everything behind in California. So what was it like shooting an entire season without fans and kind of just like the weirdest time I feel like in our history up to this point? What was just that whole experience like?
Yeah, it was definitely like really surreal. I think the first game I went to, because obviously the NBA season had been suspended, and then we didn't make it to the bubble. So I had no live sports action since March. And so the first game I went to, we were playing the Ravens, and it was just the weirdest thing ever. Because, they still play like the intro song, and they still run onto the field. And yeah, it was just so weird because it was just dead silent. And it sounds like it's not super silent on TV because they're putting in fan noise, but the fan noise doesn't come into the stadium. It only goes into the broadcast. And so when you're there, it's like deathly silent. So it was definitely like weird. I mean, sometimes I mentioned to my coworkers a few times, you look up and you're like, oh, they just score. Because all you hear is like players yelling, like very faintly from far away. And so it's like you have to pay attention to the game, or you miss something. And I think that's when I started like appreciating the game too. It's like, okay, I don't need like the energy. That's just like I like football. But it was definitely weird. It was cool to be able to say like I shot that, and I have moments from that, and we were able to document this time, this unprecedented time, this once in a lifetime. I don't mean to say it like a glorifying statement, but just being able to know that like we all have shots, so that when they do want to take a look back at this crazy year, we got that. So it was cool. You try to appreciate being in the building where most people would really like to be, but yeah, weird.
Obviously, it's the off season right now, but walk us through just like what's a day like, on a Sunday in Foxborough, just from beginning to end.
Sure. Yeah, I would say depending on when the game is, if it's an away game, it's usually a lot earlier, right? Because if they're on the West Coast, or if they're in, any other one of the other time zones. But I'd say for a general like 1 p.m. game, we would try to wake up and be at work at least 4 hours before kickoff. So I have certain assignments that I have to do, and same with our videographer. We have like an arrival video when players get there. We have a warm up video that goes out. We like to like upload some little one off shots of, you look for guys like, oh, okay, is this guy returning from injury? Cool, let's try to get a shot of him so that we can post it like, so and so's back. Or, is there a guy who's been playing really well? Let's try to get a shot of him so that we can post him, and that'll go well with the fans. Like, okay, this guy's had 5 interceptions in 5 games. Let's definitely be like, okay, look at so and so getting ready for the game or whatever. So, and then once the game starts, if it's an away game, it's really just kind of watching the game. Big play happens, you hop on the computer, cut the clip, and send it so they can upload it. But otherwise, you could kind of just get to watch the game. Home games, what I figured out a way to kind of manage it where I have to cut the one-off shot. So if there's a big play, I have to be the one to cut it this year. And so I figured out if I put my camera on a tripod and put my laptop on a chair, I can kind of film and then go back to, oh, shoot, okay, you got a touchdown, cool. Let's cut it, whatever, I color, here you go. And then hop back on the camera and go back into it. So who knows how it'll work next year with fans being around and so on and so forth. But for this year, it was kind of like a cool way to be able to do both for me, because that's such a, like, I really am enjoying shooting as I'm, getting more into it over the past 2 years or so. So it was nice to go to figure out a way I could do both. And then once the game ends, we usually want to, so I have to stick around because then we have the press conferences. So we cut the press conferences into like a little, here's like the best blurbs from this guy and from this guy. Try to tell like the story through their eyes of what happened during the game. Not like a high bandwidth project. We do it pretty quickly. But yeah, and then we get to go home. So it's usually a pretty long day, 9-10 hour days, but it's cool. I mean, it was different for me for sure. And I'm looking forward to seeing what it's like when there's fans and the energy's there and, all the craziness is going on. I think that's what'll make it like really, really cool. And that's when it'll like hit me that I actually work here.
Thank you so much for sharing just like everything that you've done to this point, and I'm like super excited to see everything that's coming up for you. But I wanted to wrap up this first half of the interview just with your goals. What are some things that you're obviously you have this upcoming season in the fall, but just the bigger, broader scope of your career path. What do you have planned for yourself?
I've been thinking about this question a lot myself too, and I'm not sure if it leads me to a professional sport or a college sport, but I definitely think, at least for the time being, and for the next 5 so years, I definitely want to stick in creating content and just being able to tell brand stories or a player's story, whether it's for them directly, whether it's through the team for them, whether it's for the team itself. I enjoy being able to kind of tell that story and get to tell it my own way. I think that there's a lot of value in teams having content creators, no matter what level they're at, just because there's just so much to tell. Like, the Patriots have a million stories that we could tell, from their draft picks and from, the different guys who've walked through the locker room. Cam came here one season and broke like 3 of our records. And so even if he didn't come back, there's a story with that. And whether or not we could tell that specific story, each team has stories like that. And I want to keep being able to tell those type of stories. I think I stick with the team. I don't see myself, I'm not really like I don't know that I'm the type of person that goes full freelance ever. I think I enjoy working for a team and having that type of structure, even if it is pretty hectic. But I mean, I'm not ruling it out in the future, I guess. I definitely do a few things here and there freelance, and I really enjoy photography as a hobby, and I haven't actually charged anyone that I've shot with yet. Just trying to like learn and figure it out. But yeah, I think my goal is to stick with a team and definitely like a higher role. Let me oversee some things, let me have a little more delegation process where I can really like pull together, like, okay, we want to do this, like, let's do this type of project and everyone's on board, and let's pull a colorist, and let's get our videographer and pair them up with a really awesome freelancer, and let's reach out to these people and they can score the music, and let's really put some like nice stuff together. So in the future, I definitely want a role where that's kind of on my plate, and I get to like have the discussions where we can, put a budget towards something. We can, do that. So in due time, definitely. But I think sticking with a team and just progressing in that way is definitely my main goal for now.
No doubt, man. I love that. And I'm excited to see everything that you come up with down the line. But yeah, dude, thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate it. We're about to hop into these 5 videos and photo. So yeah, let's cut to that now. Isaiah brought 5 videos and some photos that he's gonna be sharing with us. Starting off with the first one, we have kind of a flex, man. You're kind of just like setting the bar real high right now, but it is the Game 6 trailer for the NBA Finals with the Warriors and the Raptors.
Warriors! Klay Thompson, 3 ball, got it! Warriors! Lowry is blocked by Draymond. The game's over. Keep the lights on at Oracle. Then old Barnes got one more dance.
And the biggest advantage is being at Oracle Arena one more time where our fans can really get behind us. We're going to have to will ourselves, for another 48 minutes to stay alive, and whatever it's going to take from every single guy.
This was such a significant video for me. It's obviously not technically my best video by any means, but I think the moment that I got to do this was really big for me. So obviously, being from Oakland, it's a big deal that I got to work for the Warriors. And game 6 was, no matter what, whether they won or lost, it was absolutely the last game in Oakland. And so for me, that felt really special to get to capture that and be like, hey, I'm making a trailer for this. I made the trailer for game 5 and my supervisor liked it. He was like, oh, it's good. And so he's like, you're going to do another one. You're going to do another one today for the game tomorrow. And so I was literally getting footage sent in via proxies, because our team technically was still in Toronto at the time I was editing this. They were flying back. And so I was just getting footage as it was coming, trying to edit it up, as it was coming in. And so it was actually a little stressful trying to get it done, because they were like, oh, we need this done. The game's tomorrow, we need this. I had a few hours to work on it and I didn't even start with all the footage. So it was definitely a little stressful. But once I got it done, they were super happy with it. I thought it was awesome. And it went on social media, and just it going on social media and getting, a couple 100,000 views was huge for me. I was so excited. And then I go into the game the next day, game 6, because I'm also working it, and they play it. And I didn't know they were playing it. They played it pre-tip. So right before they played the intro video, they played the video. And I was like, yo, this is crazy. And people are obviously cheering because they're about to tip off the game. And this is a trailer and it's doing what it's supposed to do. But to be on the court, getting ready for the last game at Oracle, and to see something I made being a kid from Oakland, that was the biggest moment ever for me. And so the video I thought was cool. I think I did a decent job editing it, but it was the moment for me that made this such a special project.
100%. And yeah, I can't even imagine what that must have been because it doesn't seem like they told you that they were going to play it pre-tip. So you just being there, and then you looking up and it's holy shit, I made that. That must have been super mind blowing, just a full circle moment. What would you say was the most challenging part of editing? Was it kind of just not having all the footage when you started, or was there something else that you kind of ran across that was a little more challenging?
Yeah, I think it was definitely the part about not having the footage right away. It was kind of hey, we need you to make a trailer and we don't have anything for you to make it with yet. I was okay, that's okay, for sure. That works. And so, I got the footage in. I think it turned out well. That was definitely a little stressful. But yeah, I think it turned out decent. I did have a little inkling of that they might play it, because they go through everything that they're going to play in the entire board show pregame. And so I heard it. When I heard it, I was actually on the concourse and dipped my head through the curtains to see, oh, that's my video, cool. And then it's oh, they might play it. And then when they did play it, even though I kind of heard it before, it didn't change anything about the moment. It was definitely awesome to get to feel that.
Yeah, man, of course. And obviously we all know kind of how that game ended, unfortunately, for the Warriors. But, I'm sure we don't.
Yeah, that was definitely stressful to be down there. And I remember specifically watching Clay go up for the dunk and then landing. And I was oh, shit, that looked awful. And then he came back out, and dude, that was the loudest I've ever heard a crowd ever, when he jogged back out to shoot his free throws. So honestly, everything about being at that game, aside from the fact that they lost, and contrary to popular belief, maybe fans of the Raptors in Canada are nice, but fans of the Raptors not in Canada were kind of obnoxious.
Yeah, that's a hot take, man. So, you might have some people come after you for that one.
It's a hot take. Hey, come for me. I was in the building. They were not, but they won the NBA Finals. So all right, fine. I get it. The Warriors have won 5, the Warriors have won 3 of the last 5, and you guys just won for the first time ever. Be a jerk about it, fine. But I wasn't super thrilled with how they were.
Yeah, no, I feel you, man. You got to give them a little leeway there, I guess. So they deserve it. But it's kind of crazy to think that Clay basically hasn't played since like that day, which is kind of insane to think about. It just seems like so long ago at this point. But it's kind of the nature of the game. All right, epic. Let's move on to the second piece of content here. A really colorful photo. It's at a concert. Walk us through just like this experience as a whole.
Yeah, so I think I've alluded to it earlier, but I mean, I kind of do photography as a hobby. Like, it's not a job by any means. I don't always really know what I'm doing when it comes to photography. I'm just kind of experimenting. And I think this photo for me was such an awesome one because, I went to this little small venue where my friend was performing. And when I got there, I was like, hey, can I bring my camera in? And the security guard was like, yeah, I don't care. And so I was like, all right, cool. So I just like ran in the car, grabbed my camera, walked in there, and all I had was like a 50 millimeter. So everything was like super tight because it was when I think of this venue, don't think of like a concert. Think of like 60 people at like this, like more of like an art collective type vibe. And so, I mean, everything was super close up. And I was like, you know what? Like, this would be cool to be like, I want to be able to shoot content in the future. So I just started taking some pictures. Didn't really know what I was doing yet. I'd only had my camera for maybe a month. So I've been doing photography for a month at this point. And when I went back home, I like went through all the photos and I was like, yo, like this one is kind of dope. It's an awesome silhouette. Like the light perfectly hit like the chain and the grill, and there's all these colors going on behind them and color and lighting. And that's like my favorite part about photography. And so I was like, yeah, this is awesome. So I figured I would add it to the mix to kind of show like, even if you don't know what you're doing, just bring your camera somewhere and just try.
Yes, 100%. I think that's really the name of the game when it comes to video and photo. Just shoot something, you know? You got to start somewhere. No one's going to be a pro from the end of the day. But yeah, I love just the colors in this and the way this turned out. I want to get your thoughts on sort of the difference or your opinion on, the difference between photography and video, because I feel like they're two separate art forms. They required like a different set of eyes or perspectives. So just wanted to see just your take on the difference there.
Yeah, it's so different. And I mean, it isn't, but it is, right? Like with photography, my approach is a lot different. I know that I can capture the elements of something a certain way with photography that I can't with videography and vice versa. So, those cool shots that people get on like a gimbal or whatever, where like there's a light behind the building and, they move so that the light starts, the sun comes out behind it. Those are awesome, but they don't necessarily work the same way for photography because it's still. And so I just kind of go in about it like, if I am looking to take photos, then what am I trying to capture? And for that moment, I was trying to capture the people and them having fun. And so, I just kind of, since it's a hobby for me, I just kind of go in and try to look at it like, how can I best show people how I feel in this moment? So yeah, when you break it down, the videography and photography are the same in the sense that you're trying to capture that moment, but you definitely have to like take a different approach and remember that you have to capture it all within one still frame. And how do you do that versus videography? You can't, it's not necessarily as interesting to capture one still moment. So how can I add movement? How can I add like a dynamic aspect to it? So that's kind of the different approaches, I guess I'd say.
This shows like it's always important to keep learning, you know what I mean? Whether it's photography or videography or experimenting with new things. I think for anyone watching, like don't be afraid to just like go out there and just try some new, because you might get a dope image like this one. All right, moving on to the third piece of content here. We got Bradley Beal against the Warriors. And I think there's an interesting story as to when this was shot, but break it down for us.
Yeah, so I submitted this like not because it was a project, but I felt like it was probably one of my better shots that I got. And this entire season was about me learning how to shoot and know what I'm doing when I'm shooting rather than just pointing and pressing record. And I mentioned earlier in the interview, but like our videographer for the Warriors, he was super awesome, super helpful and helping me learn. And so for me, this was like, wow, like I knew what I was doing with my ISO and I knew what I was doing with my aperture and my shutter speed in this moment. And I don't know, it was such like a raw moment for me where at the same time, the players, he goes up for a layup and he gets blocked. But like they're having such a good time. Like I get like this awesome reaction from Bradley Beal, like just laughing and kind of like trying to slap Marquise back on the back, just because like it was a fun play, and I just thought it was so cool to capture that moment. It like showed me like, wow, like from where I started, not just pressing record and not really knowing what I'm doing, to being able to capture something like this at an NBA game, it was kind of like more of a defining thing for me. Like, hey, like you can shoot, like you're pretty decent at it. Keep going. All the work that you've been putting in for the last few months, trying to learn, trying to get better, is paying off. And so, like you said, though, this was like a very interesting game because I believe this was our second to last home game. I ended up shooting the last home game. The last home game was Steph's return game, I believe. And so, or at least the last home game I worked. And so then, boom, pandemic hit, NBA's done for the season. And that was the second to last Warriors game I ever shot, which is a bummer because I felt like I was just kind of hitting that groove of like getting better.
I know you mentioned the Warriors videographer, Tom, who it seems like was kind of a mentor to you and just like shared some of his knowledge of shooting and just what that experience was like. So I don't know, like, would you say it's important to have like some sort of mentor, someone you can just bounce ideas off of, someone that can kind of just help show you the ropes within this crazy industry that we work in?
Yeah, I definitely think it's important to have someone you can kind of go to, like you said, to bounce ideas off of or just ask questions for. I don't know if you need it to be set up in like a mentor-mentee kind of role, but I think more often than not, most people are always down to help people out. I think as humans, just naturally, we enjoy helping and uplifting others by nature. And so I don't know a lot, but I might know more than someone else. And if they were like, hey, Isaiah, how do I do this? Or what's a cool way to do this? I'm always down to help them out. And I think the same can go for most creators, especially now that we have all this access with social media. So yeah, I think it's super awesome to be able to have that and have him kind of be at work where I can always ask him questions and I can always bug him. But for anybody who's like wondering, like, oh, I need, I don't have anybody I can hit up me. You can really DM almost anyone. I don't think anyone that I know, at least in the creative circles that I've been in, has ever been like, nah, I'm not going to help you. Or like, nah, I can't do it.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. I think for sure, just like anyone watching is like, feel free to reach out to myself or Isaiah, whatever questions you might have, like more than happy to help. And you should really reach out to Isaiah though, because he's the one out here shooting the Warriors and Patriots. So, but yeah, dude, I love this clip though. Like, yeah, like you mentioned the Bradley Beal reaction at the end. Like he's like, they're clearly having a good time, and I love how you were able to capture that. So that was a really, really good moment. Moving on to the fourth piece of content, we have some Warriors merchandise. Seems like it's for the draft day lottery. So walk us just through how this came about and just how it was put together.
Since it was like going on my third year with the Warriors, they kind of started giving us a little more responsibilities as senior production assistants, because by that point we had been promoted. And so me and another senior production assistant, her name's Amanda, they were like, hey, we have the draft lottery merchandise. We need some, photos and videos of it. Do whatever, kind of just go for it. And so we showed up and we got it. We came up with some ideas. We got the lighting and we got like, this like spinning thing, and we got like the sliders, and we took a whole bunch of photos. And this one for me, I thought was awesome because this was one of the only like ideas I had in my head beforehand. And so we went and we took someone's, I don't remember who, but we took someone's like name. We have like these little name plates, like where people stick their, like, I guess whatever their name and their role is on their desk. So we just took out their name tag for a second, stuck the hat on there. Like we were super unprepared. Stuck the hat on there, took a nice picture of it, and then got like a little piece of tape and just moved the balls around within the shot. We took like 10 photos, and I took it home in Photoshop and cut it out and posted it. And I thought it was just so awesome. And then they put it all on like warriorshop.com and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Because for me, photography is just a hobby. So to be able to like take a good product photo, I was like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah, no, I think, I love just the way all the balls are kind of just floating in midair and they're around it. It's thematically, it's a really great way of presenting it. How was it with the Warriors as far as like, I know we spoke about an editing project before, but with this one, do you feel like it was a little bit more free to put your input or just create what you wanted to, or was it a little bit more structured than just that?
Yeah, with this one, I think that's another reason why I enjoyed it so much is because there wasn't that structure there. It was kind of like, hey, this is what we need, and we want you and her to go do it. So I was like, okay, awesome. And so we came up with this idea. I mean, we found a way to light it so that we thought it was nice. And, we were like, okay, well, let's, instead of taking a picture of the ball and moving it around later, we need a foreground and a background. So let's take it around the hat and do it that way so that, it makes more sense. And we really just came up with the ideas and did it together. It was funny. We actually, at first, we tried to do this, what's the word I'm looking for? Practically. We tried to practically do this video or this photo, and it just did not work because we're doing I had all the balls and I tried to just throw them all up and capture them, and it just wasn't working. And so we came up with the idea to do it in post and stitch it all together, which way better option.
Moving on to the fifth and final piece of content here, we have this amazing mixtape, Columbia football.
Yeah, so I wanted to feature this one because for me, it signaled a lot of growth for me because my cousin plays down at Columbia. I'm pretty tight with him. I have a lot of family who is all here on the East Coast. A lot of family plays football, but him and I have stayed pretty close pretty much since he was in high school. And he got to Columbia. He redshirted his first year. In his second year, he got to play. And he didn't have a whole bunch of footage, but in talking to him, I was like, yeah, I edit videos. I can make you a cool little mixtape. And we did that, and that dropped Christmas 2019. And I was just thinking about it, we were in the pandemic, and I had a lot of downtime, after work and so on and so forth. So I was like, hey, if you want to resend me all that footage that you got, I'll redo something that I think is more up to par with my standards now. And I can make something way doper and way cooler than the one I made for you before, which wasn't terrible, but it was cool with me. I was like, bet, let's do it. Let's rerun it. Let's run it back. And, he plays in New York. So that's why I went with the Pop Smoke stuff. That's him, all his friends. That's the wave. So fine. And so I edited that video up in a day or whatever. And I was just having fun with it. Didn't have a whole bunch of shots to work with, but I knew since it was just for him, I could try things that I might not otherwise do, like some mirror effects and some cool overlays and stuff that I don't always get to do at work because, it's just too effect heavy. So yeah, it was fun. Cool being able to do it for my cousin. Hopefully, if there's any other athletes out there that have some footage and want a video, I'll just do it for you. Let's do it. Let's make something cool.
Like you said, that with certain clients, you can't use a ton of heavy effects, but for this one, I'm super glad you tried out different things. Do you have some go-to, sites or effects that you just kind of rely on as far as overlays or just some things, or you kind of just whatever you see and find or try to implement it or create it yourself? What's your vibe for that?
There's a lot of cool ways to get assets for stuff, and it's kind of like a scavenger hunt, which makes it fun in itself when you find something. But you can go to YouTube. Story blocks or video blocks is an awesome asset to have. Envato's awesome. So yeah, there's just a lot of places that you can get stuff from where they have templates and they have stock footage and they have stock motion graphics and they have overlays and fonts and sounds and pretty much everything you could want. So it's just kind of find something you think is cool, throw it on there, play with the blending modes, play with manipulating it, see what looks good. But yeah, I think it's cool to be able to try and find those unique ones because we all know there's a few of them that are just really, really overdone in most videos. But it's cool. You just find something like a scavenger hunt, go looking for assets and resources and try to find something that you think is cool.
I'm sure your cousin was pretty jazzed when he saw this, huh? I'm sure he some some flame emojis here and there. Cool. Yeah, I'll show you a bit. No, but yeah, this is really good. I love how you put this together. But yeah, for anyone watching this, we had some connection issues. So before we lose connection again, Isaiah, thank you so much for taking the time just to share your knowledge, share some of the videos that you've edited and that you've shot. And, I think people can really learn a lot from this and take away. So I hope people were taking notes throughout this. But final thing before we let you go, if you want to just look at the camera that you have set up at home, let people know how they can find you if they want to connect with you, reach out to you. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so my name is Isaiah King. I'm a content creator for the New England Patriots. If you want to ask me a question, check out my work, whatever, you can go ahead and follow me at Zayoea on Instagram, on Twitter. Sounds funny when you say it out loud, but yeah, if y'all want to connect or whatever the case may be, hit me up. Let's work. Let's chop it up. Let's become friends.
Now I need to know, what's the story behind Zayoea?
It's just like a childhood nickname, like, oh, Zayoea, like, which is weird because no one ever called me Zay, so I don't really know. Yeah, I don't know, but I made it Instagram in 10th grade, and I stuck with it and I rode with it. So
I feel that as long as it works, yeah, that's all that matters. But thank you again, man. Really appreciate your time, and we'll see you all in the next one.